Hey, how's it going? I'm Ron, and that's Zach back there on the camera, and we're here on this week's episode of Influences. And we have our first special guest, journeyman, veteran musician, professional touring artist, Mr. Guenther Kapelle, bass extraordinaire. And I've known this man a long time. I love this man more than a man should probably love a man.
That's our little secret.
But Zach's going to ask Guenther a few questions.
Wow, okay.
And Guenther is going to kind of give a little tasty bass stuff here,
boy.
and maybe to kind of punctuate his zany answers. So without further ado.
Okay, give a little background information.
My background information. Well, let's see here. I started playing the bass when I was a youngster, a teenager. Then I went down to this school called Musicians Institute in Hollywood, California. That is where I met the wonderful Ron Tippin. And we had many a good time, and we started jamming together and got into all sorts of hijinks and craziness. And we keep on playing. Here we are.
All right, so now we got a couple questions.
Okay, questions.
Do you play any other instruments besides this lovely?
Well, I can fool around on guitar and piano, and as you heard, drums.
Oh, yes.
A little bit. But the bass is my main number one instrument that I enjoy playing.
Right on. What were the first songs that you learned?
Oh, man. Kiss. Love Gun. Probably. All that, before I could play an instrument, I came across some Kiss records, and God of Thunder and She and 100,000 Years and all that stuff, and I was like, what is going on here? And then naturally I gravitated to an instrument and picked up the bass and started to try to figure out Gene Simmons' bass lines. Although later I came to realize that it wasn't always Gene playing bass. Which, well, that's another topic of discussion. Anyways, Kiss would probably been in that first one. Then, fell into stuff like Van Halen and, all the stuff at the time.
Kind of on the same topic, what musical artists or bands do you admire?
Well, a lot of the bands that I came up on are still around. And so those bands like Yes and Rush and Floyd and Genesis and Phil Collins, of course, went solo, and Peter Gabriel, and all those acts, were great, and they're still around, which is amazing, So, and then, there's some bands in the 80s and such that were great, too. Guns N' Roses, The Crew.
What are your fondest musical memories?
Well, it's always a lot of fun playing the big shows. When you roll up on a big festival and there's thousands of people there and there's great backline and all you do is walk up and plug in and play and everybody's already cheering for you. That's a pretty good time. And you get paid for it, too.
In the same vein, what are most of your live performances like?
Well, everything and anything. The big festival rock star stuff is great. But then, you can be playing at 3 a.m. in a smoky little jazz club somewhere with some buddies and about 10 people hanging on to every note you're doing. And that's a big rush, too. Playing some freak out acid jazz to a few select people that are maybe intoxicated, but also, there for listening and a good time. But so the big shows, the little shows, doesn't matter. As long as the players are great and the music's good and everyone's having a good time.
All right. As for, as good as you are, I can only assume that you practice.
I do.
What are your practices like? How long do you practice for? What do you do?
Well, that depends. As you start playing more, your time would travel, in a van or in a plane or whatever. It gets more condensed to what you're able to do practice-wise in a hotel room or so on. So you get a 5, 10, 15-minute warm-up thing going before a show sometimes, which can get you ready for the show. But when I'm not learning songs or learning a show or practicing that, and I do have some time to work on my own things, then I can get in front of the computer or with my headphones and start working on stuff, by all my bass heroes that I want to expand on.
Yeah. All right. In the same vein of your own stuff, What is your own music like?
Well, my own stuff.
If you had to describe it with,
If I
words.
got the luxury of, cranking out some albums, I would like to do some improvisational, freaky type fusion rock kind of stuff. But that's because that's for me. I love that stuff. But it's a very small market out there. People are going to purchase an album. But to work, because I am a working musician, I support a lot of blues rock artists, pop artists, soul, funk, R&B, and then I have my job as a bass player to lock with the drummer, be a groovy rhythm section, make the lead singer or whoever the artist is, the boss, feel like they can do anything because everybody behind them is on cruise control. That's my job, to make the singer or the boss look good.
Right on.
Yeah.
And lastly, who are your biggest influences now and then?
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, then we were very influenced by Geddy Lee, and then lots of cool guys early on, and then all the usual suspects came. Jocko, Stanley, James Jamerson with Motown. I mean, that was some great stuff. All the classic lines. And then lately, it's a lot of friends or lesser known players that are your contemporaries. Or you're like, wow, there's something cool there. And there's the star guys are always going to be stars, and they're always going to inspire you to do stuff. But sometimes you're on a festival or on a gig, and then there's another band, and then the bass player does something really cool, and you're like, that's neat. I'm going to investigate what he's up to and things like that. So. Influences, lots of influences. I mean, it's from everywhere.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
We are no strangers. Now, to conclude this, could you demonstrate your magnificent bass playing?
I will give it a shot.
Not to put you on the spot, but
Uh-huh.
to put you on the spot.
Got this lovely Fender Jazz 5-string. Gonna try to make some nice music.
Short and sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for appearing on our show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great.